We are joined by Kelvin Rafadi, who is obviously a broad expert on many kinds of fraud, corruption, criminality in South Africa. And we would like to speak to him now in particular about Eskom, which is obviously one of the most popular topics in the country, politically, economically, socially. Obviously, it affects everyone. And the reason that we want to talk to Kelvin about this is because there might not actually be a person in South Africa who knows more about the ways in which the corruption, the fraud, and the criminal mismanagement of Eskom and its subsidiaries rolls out better than Kelvin. I mean, you simply have a remarkable knowledge. So walk us through some of the crazy stories that you've encountered at Eskom and some of the absurd mismanagement or criminality. We obviously know very briefly or broadly about things like coal mafias. We know about people that are vandalizing equipment in the stations, or even about instances where they're robbing maintenance crews who are going out to fix issues, all being part of a larger criminal network operating to undermine South Africa as a whole.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. What I can say is Eskom issues, or let me say corruption, you need to be on the ground to diagnose it. What do I mean by that? You know, many of the officials, they will come out and say, no, you're just an armchair critic. So at least with us, we had the privilege of infiltrating and be on the ground and collecting documents within Eskom. Now, it's a very dangerous crime scene, let me call it that way, whereby if we speak of power stations, different power stations, their challenge is that they are sabotaged. And I've seen that in recent months, Eskom, they don't like to use the word sabotage for the sole reason that they need more bailouts, because if they use that term, then they can be in a state of negligence. Now, the corruption and the sabotage at Eskom, it derives from procurement. Now, at procurement, you get what we call the LPOs, local purchase orders, informal tendering, and buying of parts, especially on an emergency, and coal for that matter, or diesel. Now, that's where now the corruption is rife. Because of, in every power station, and I'll tell you of Tutuka, where we had the privilege of being there under an RFQ informal tendering, even though, you know, most of the time Eskom, they like to dispute that we were not properly procured, but we were there. We did investigate, they gave us documents, we analyzed even policies. Now, in one of their storages, or the main storage, in every power station, they must at least keep 3 components on each and every power station of each and every unit. Now you get ROTEC members. Their role is to service the power station. It used to be called Roshcon. Now there's ROTEC. Then you get a service manager who works under the GM, general manager of the power station. Then you get an engineer on site with the experience of 10 years who comes in under a contractor who's contracted to either be on a tender of servicing the turbines. Now, what they do is there is a turbine, there is a boiler, there are boilers. Now, those things are intertwined. But Eskom, most of the time, or power stations, they issue different contracts. Somebody who will oversee the boilers, someone who oversees the turbines. Now, if on an emergency they call somebody who services the turbines and it's not available, the ones of the boilers must come and service. Now, that's where also the allocation of jobs and specs, these 2 people, they fight amongst one another. Now, coming to the point of the components, they must keep original OEM, original equipment manufacture of each component of every unit in the power station. But guess what? They hardly buy original parts. Now, once they don't buy those original parts, they don't even keep 3. Maybe they'll keep 2. So once they are finished in in servicing the power station, then they have to now take the unit down and wait for the supply or for it's an emergency. Now, on an emergency is an unlimited budget. Now they must get 3 codes. So how we caught them? We downloaded some of their computers, the guys from procurement and some who are contracted within Eskom, and that's where now we saw that there is a manipulation of getting 3 codes somewhere and then providing them to another third party who manufactures the parts at a cheaper price or even at a good markup, and then they make money, and that's how they do it. And overtime as well. They create more of overtime. So by not buying original parts, I always say the power station runs like a racing course. If Michael Schumacher, he goes on a racing course and he stops at the service station and you feed in on his racing car, spark plugs which are not original, some of the components which are not original, the car will get a fatigue. He won't finish again. He will come back to the service before he can complete 3-4 laps. So the fatigue is caused by not buying original parts. And it's human who break some of those components so that these units can go offline. And once it goes off, then they must now go on an emergency. And that's where now they make money. Now, there's what we call a pirating in the power station. The pirating, because at some point I remember I downloaded one of the computers and I was so happy when I slept thinking that I got the lady, because I saw that he said, no, pirate this part to another unit. So I thought, I got, no. In their engineering term is that if a clutch of a particular unit is broken and then on the other unit only a gear lever, you are able to take the clutch of that one and boost the other one whilst you're waiting for now the 2 components now to feed on.
Yes.
So then you don't get stuck. The unit must run. So that's why it's important for them to buy original parts and keep extra parts. But what do? They don't keep extra parts. They buy Hong Kong, I can call them. And that's why you get fatigues in some of these power stations.
When you stop buying from original equipment manufacturers, I also seem to think that you would be making a lot of loopholes for fraud. Because you've got to remember, when you build a power station and you have original equipment manufacturers put components in, there's almost an agreement between the OEM supplier and the client right from the beginning that you're going to have a working relationship. Now, if I was an OEM supplier and they called me out and said, we're having a huge problem with our power plant here, can you help us? And I got there with my team of engineers and found that they'd installed a part that wasn't part of my instruction to fit an original equipment part, and they'd used a pirated part or whatever, I can tell you now it would immediately break down the relationship. I've worked inside engineering service sector before, and I would just refuse to work on I would say that our contract's void. We had an agreement. I'm the original supplier. You've now taken a pirated part or an illegal part or whatever, and you fitted it to my system. It surely that must break down the working relationships between everyone at Eskom and the supply networks that make these parts available.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the OEMs, they are very jealous of their parts. Even now, let's say you own an iPhone and then you install some screen or something which is not original. You go to the shop, immediately they don't take responsibility. So it's equally like that. So, but the people who are failing on the fiduciary duties are the service managers of those power stations, and the engineers, some of the engineers. But that's another thing, the advice that I can give to the current minister, because I don't know, we've got Minister of Electricity, we've got Energy.
There's 3 of them.
Then we've got
there's Gwede.
Public Enterprise.
I just know we've got
Yes.
Gwede, we've got
Yes.
Josienso Ramahopa,
Yes.
and then who's the third one? I forget, but yeah, you're right.
Mr. Praveen.
All arguing with each other.
Yes. Now, if they want to get the power station, to diagnose it to the latter, you don't only go to those power station and just speak to the managerial people at the managerial level. Speak to the people on the ground. Speak to the cleaner. Speak to that guy who feeds the coal on the coal from the coal yard on the feed belt, because they know the truth about power station. In fact, there was one incident whereby, I still question myself. A lady was found piled up with coal at Tutuka. And I asked the management that what really happened. They say, no, she didn't see the truck reversing. No, it doesn't work like that. Every truck at the power station, when it reverses, there's a special sound and there's a light. It beeps the light. Only to find out later that on the postmortem, she was strangled and then piled up with that particular coal. Now, what could have been the reason so late at night that could have happened? She must have seen something that she was not supposed to see. So, but what I'm saying is, speak to the people on the ground. They know, they will tell you who's sabotaging the power station, who's chowing with who's instigator of blocking the truck to come into the power station. Now, there's another issue now. Those who are in big contracts, they come from the head office, they drive to the power station to sit on the adjudication of the tendering of the projects. And guess what? Most of them, especially in Mpumalanga, when they leave the power station, they find the roadblocks set up by the mafias. And they tell them that contract, you must not give it to so and so, we must be shortlisted. So people are held at gunpoint. Ordinary people. They're the ones who can tell the minister that, no, I was held at gunpoint to even award the contract to so and so. But if you don't speak to those people, they just see you dancing, walking past them and talking to the managerial level. You're not going to get the truth about Eskom.
When it comes to Eskom, they're going to continue to have issues with whistleblowers on the ground, because you're working at Eskom and you're watching your boss, your manager, the senior manager of the plant, walk around with bodyguards and a full bulletproof jacket with a collar because he's worried about being assassinated, and you're earning minimum wage and you've got no bodyguards and no one to look after you. And I would say to that person, be very, very, very careful about, what you say, who you speak out to, because you could end up like the lady on the pile of trash, where you've obviously been murdered. Something's taken place here, and nobody could be interested. So those people are out there, and I really hope that South Africa continues to empower people like you to go out onto the ground and say, here, Kelvin Rafadi, you've got a good reputation. You're competent at your job. We need to know what's going on inside Eskom, and actually give somebody like you the free reins to go in and audit and do lifestyle audits and find out what's going on, because I've heard that two things happen. They'll bring somebody like you into Eskom, and they do it in a big public display. They say, look at us, we're welcoming the private detectives, we're going to bring private business in, they're going to look, they're going to sort it out. And then as soon as the cameras are gone away, Kelvin says, can I please have that file? Oh no, we don't know where that file is. It went missing. Okay, can I please have that computer? No, that computer, it fell into a bucket of water last week, And
No. You are 100% right. Like I said from the onset, that it's a crime scene at Eskom. I mean, somebody wearing a bulletproof for a so-called unplanned maintenance. So it shows that there is something behind that. But a lot of people, like I say, they on the ground, they know a lot of information. And that's how we managed to penetrate most of the shenanigans within Eskom. Myself, I've mastered the way of talking to ordinary people on the ground, having their contact, and then they guide you where to go. There were a lot of unrest in one of the power stations in Limpopo, at Lephalale. Now, the only way we could find out that why every time there is no productivity at that power station, who's causing this unrest? I was told by the ordinary people that, no, come to such a shebeen. That's where the instigators are at. That's where they drink. They buy us alcohol. There's somebody who buys them tires and petrol, and he rent out buggies for them. We went there, and indeed, that's what we found. But imagine if I have to go to the managerial level and I ask why so many unrest, and I have to write a report of 40 pages or 140 pages and charge Eskom for something that it's not tangible. So the people on the ground, they know the information. It's just that they fear for their life. But once they see that this one has got strong teeth, indeed, they channel that information to you. I remember one day I was sitting at one of the offices. We call some managers to give us some statements about the issues of the power station, investigative statements. Now, she said to me, just as I didn't know that you are this small and disabled as well, because I live with disability. So But then my other question says, why did you say I'm disabled and small and young boy? Then he said, no, I was expecting a giant, with tough muscles,
Yeah.
Because, hey, everybody's talking about you guys here at the power station. So people where they can see the strong teeth to deal and root out the corruption, they will channel that information.
Yeah, it's not about having big muscles or big guns. You have to have a strong heart. You have to have the mental fortitude to keep pushing through the stress, the anxiety, people lying to you, people lying about you. What you've got yourself involved in takes a huge amount of mental fortitude. You got to have an empathetic skill set. You are quite a remarkable human being, and you have used a unique skill set that you've got to place yourself in a very valuable but precarious position. And I just hope that you're going to be able to continue pushing forward, because South Africa needs people like you to actually crack the egg. So far, the corruption egg of Eskom remains uncracked. That's my personal opinion. And we need more people like you out there who are given little hammers and allowed to go chip away at the shell until we get a bit more of a crack. But now that we're on this topic, I would like to actually speak to you about the coal networks and the coal mafia networks, because this is actually something that I have experienced firsthand. I was driving on the Kimberley route down to the south of the country last year, and there was a certain point where we were doing 120 kilometers an hour in our car, and we had trucks coming past us on flats doing 140, going through stop streets, and I said to the passengers in the car that there's something up with this culture. Because if you get paid to drive a truck, you get paid by the hour or the load. I mean, why would you risk your life speeding an extra 10 or 20 kilometers an hour? And what my bet is that some of these trucks were trying to make up time on the Kimberley route so that they could pull in and maybe do a little bit of something with the coal. It just didn't make sense to me that all these trucks were speeding and driving so recklessly. So look, I might be wrong about this. I might just be reading too much into it. But in line with that comment, can you share some information about just how crazy these coal mafia networks are?
Yeah, look, I think what I can tell you is that the coal mafia, it's rife, and they supply most of their coal at Eskom. And their modus operandi goes like either they go into Eskom supplying a coal, they go on a weight bridge, and they don't drop off the coal and then comes out again and resell it to another plant or somewhere else. And then there are those that will go on the weight bridge, because the weight bridge are calibrated, but the coal is mixed, is of poor quality, and is mixed with some rock. Now, based on that, they mix them with rock at some of their, at some of their side plants, but they have to have an agreement with some of the guys who are handling the weight bridge and some of the securities. So it's a whole that type of a network. Now, what they've covered at Eskom with the coal mafia thing is that they say there are politicians who are involved in that particular report. Now, I can attest to that, to say these boys who gets this contract, there's what we call buyers at Eskom, which are Eskom officials. They are the buyers. They issue out the informal tendering, and then they pick you up from the database or whatever, that you are a supplier of coal. Now, these boys, what they do, they are in good communication with the buyer. Then they deliver the coal on a supply note. Then, because they don't have the money to go buy coal first, there are business guys, they go and borrow money from them. Now, those business guys, what do? They borrow them the money, obviously with some interest. Now, these boys, once they deliver, they now pay back the money to the big bosses who borrows the money. Now, the mistake that our ruling party and even other politicians, they do, the same guys who normally fund these young boys, they also fund some of the political leaders. And what do I mean by fund? sometimes if a political party, they need T-shirts or, for their rallies, whatever they need. The very same big bosses, they fund those political organization or an individual to stand and contest whatever they need to contest. Now that's where they were picked up to say, no, construction mafias are linked to political, No, these young boys, they run around, they look for business, they get funding, they take from the big guy. Now those big guys, they also fund some of the politicians. Now that's where the triangle comes in. Now the big guy, on their leisure time, on entertainment, because they love women as well, they call a young man, hey, young man, bring 2, 3, 4 girls to come swim at my house, we're popping champagnes and the likes. Then what do? Because they are young. They go on social media, post certain picture. So they are seen with who? With the big boss who's funding the operation. And then the next day, the big boss is seen at the rally of a political party. So the network, that's how they line them up.
I'm absolutely amazed at how there are certain operators within our political and social elite that have managed to marry a whole bunch of different criminal networks all together in the same time to float their criminal enterprises and criminal lifestyles. Like the Nkabis being the same people involved with the construction mafia, being the same people involved with taxi killings, being the same people involved now with kidnappings, also the same people now exercising influence within Eskom, within the illicit cash flows of Eskom. And I bet you could keep going out. I bet if we had enough time, we could link it then to the illicit commodities trade like tobacco and gold, and we could then link it back. I mean, I am sure that what a lot of people believe is that these criminal networks almost sit in isolation. So you'll get a coal mafia criminal network there, a taxi criminal network there, a construction mafia or whatever, and I don't think a lot of South Africans realize just how much these criminal networks overlap, work together, and support each other like a proper business ecosystem. So the same way that a transaction provider will support the bank, will support the retailer, and they'll all work together to make their businesses operate better and generate more profits. We've actually got some quite industrious criminals in South Africa. They're actually quite good businessmen. They just operate in nefarious ways. I was wondering, because we're kind of running out of time now, before we go, if there is any last piece of information that you think that the public should really know about Eskom and its networks, or the leadership involved, just one or two takeaways that you think are one or two most important things for the public to know about Eskom and its dysfunctionality now that may help them to be more informed or to make better decisions in the future.
Yeah, no, I think the one that I can speak of, and I'm speaking to the communities at large, please stop buying electricity from ghost vending machines. What do I mean by that? Eskom cannot collect revenue. There were machines, or let me call them the standalone CDU, credit dispenser units. Now, these machines, they used to be legal at Eskom. They were selling electricity before the Wi-Fi or the internet.
These are the units that can't be traced easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason why they can't be traced, they work on a DOS program. They work on a DOS program, Windows 7.
Wow, DOS.
Now, yes. Now, it's a very old machine, relies on a security module. So once that happens, that particular security module is the main brain of the machine. Now, what happened is they were recalled when now internet was introduced for computers now, even when you are a vendor, to even not only sell electricity, sell airtime, sell a bus ticket, and the likes, airplane ticket. So the systems that now they've got, you can go to any outlet, you buy electricity, and then you can equally on the same platform ask for airtime, the likes. Now the so-called standalone machines, they were recalled and stolen in Polokwane in the van. But the guys that stole this machine, one of them being the deceased, Mr. Teletsane, who used to work at customer care of Eskom, they made a contact with some of the officials within Eskom at the IT level. Every time Eskom updates the tariffs, they also update the tariffs of their machine. The reason being, if they don't correspond with
then
the tariff, the meter, it won't function. Their customers are the pensioners, most of them. So they got guys, runners, who goes on pension outlets. They give credit to our grannies and grandfathers, the electricity. And the next cycle, they just collect money, take orders again. So most of their customers are pensioners. So we urge our listeners, kindly tell your parents not to buy electricity from those people, because Eskom cannot collect revenue and it's suffering based on that. That money is supposed to be channeled to service this power station.
And it's obviously it's criminal theft. It's criminal theft. You're essentially a part of a syndicate that's stealing money from Eskom. That's basically what you're doing. So it might kind of seem maybe like a bit of an innocent crime where no one gets harmed, but you're actually a criminal buying stolen goods. Yeah.
Yes, you're contributing big time. So it's an offense as well, by the way.
Tell your parents not to be criminals.
Yes, they mustn't buy. Even as youth, we do know that they are so-called pepitas. They buy one, get one free. We must stop buying from them. Even now, Eskom, I've seen they've put up measures of smart metering. The smart meter, how you control it is that when you've got two geysers, they themselves remotely are able to switch off one and leave you with one to function. It doesn't stop the sale of goods vendors.
Yes.
They will still operate in that fashion. There are minds that are buying from these criminals because they are making a killing.
How many of these machines are out there?
Well, it's unknown.
Oh, it's unknown.
But
That's
the
scary.
record of Eskom, I think it's about 7 or 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken.
So you got 7 or 8.
I know they can come back and say, no, it's 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, let's assume it's 8. The reason why these boys, they've got so many machines is because immediately after they had a plan, a future plan, strategy, they went now even to the spaza shops, 7-Eleven shops, you remember those ones?
Yes.
Some OK Bazaar. They went and robbed these machines. So then you cannot only count the ones at the storage, because they went out on a rampage before even some of the shop owners could take back the machine.
Yes.
They will get robbed that machine and a few cigarettes in the shop and some cash in the till. So you think, oh, it was just a robber. No. They were actually looking for this machine.
Targeting that machine.
So they are sitting with so much of these machines.
That's unbelievable. What a crazy story. I mean, the amount of things that you know about South African criminal networks is just truly insane. I really hope that in the next couple of years, when you are done with your MBA at Cumbria, that you really consider writing a book. Because trust me, by the time you're done with your dissertation for your MBA, if writing a book won't seem like such a big task for you. Now, you're talking about the cell phones and the way that technology is used by prisoners on the inside, obviously illicitly, with the help and facilitation of either prison warders or police officers. And I find this very fascinating because in your lifetime working in the field that you've worked in, you've gone from what must have been, and please correct me if I'm wrong, literally going around and doing old-fashioned police work, setting up informer networks, one person at a time, speaking to one person, getting them on your side, giving them the information, going to the next one. And in your career, in the space of only one career, you've now emerged into the world of digital crime tracking and of digital criminality itself. And I would like you to walk us through, what was that experience? How different is it now? Versus when you started, 20 odd plus years ago?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. You see, if you can check on my company, it's been registered in 2012, which is like a 10-year, not long ago, I think. How many? 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, before then, in 2020, my company, it was, because I always loved the name Beast Tracer, so it was these traders trading as Calvin Rafadi. The reason being, there used to be sole props in the banks. Now, with a sole prop, you just choose a name, so it operates like before they introduce the corporate of CK documents. So I was operating as a sole prop there. But to answer your question is that at the time, technology was not that effective. But then immediately after I registered my company, then I managed to buy a machine called Celebrite machine. Now with the Celebrite, then we went for training. Now what the machine does, with your computer, I'm able to even extract deleted items on your tablet, even with the cell phones. And the police, they are using the same facility. So you need to be licensed because of if you are under any investigation, you are obliged to come and even testify in court. So it helps a lot. It's a tool that helps a lot. But besides that, that's why even when the police, they say, no, we want to bring all the detectives back into the field. I strongly suggest and advise them that those police, they were very good in handling informants. They were very good to go on the ground and without using even technology and apprehend the criminals. Nowadays, you need technology. You need to build up the tower of a cell phone, to place the person at the crime scene and the likes. Now, to finally answer your question is that it is very important if you are in the field of investigation to go under continuous professional education. And that's why we registered with professional bodies whereby fraud examiners, forensic practitioners, I'm a forensic practitioner as well in South Africa, a certified one. Now, we've got webinars and conferences where we learn on the latest modules of even how criminal networks operate, especially in digital forensic. And your artificial intelligence, we learn all of those. Open source, how to collect open source intelligent information. Because with the open source, it's free out there for everybody. Now, to do that and to analyze, we share that information. We build one another's confidence and knowledge. So that's why if the police have to perform very, very well, not only should a policeman have a national diploma from a college of 2000 and whatever, but they need to go on professional training to upskill them, to understand, to analyze the bank statement. There are other police in commercial crime. It's difficult for them to analyze a bank statement or even a cell phone record for that matter. You need to know what's an IME, tower dams. You need to, coordinates, how to type your coordinates into your phone. So continuous professional education is very important, and that's exactly what has helped me.
I think that what you're talking about now is something that South Africans, all South African citizens across the board are becoming increasingly aware of, that there's a growing gap in the quality difference between private sector players, for example, private security companies versus SAPS, or private investigators versus SAPS investigators. And I think part of the reason that we have this problem in South Africa is exactly what you're saying, that the private industry is continually pushing some of its role players, or a large part of its role players, to upskill, become more educated, to learn new systems, to become more competent. And the same way that education in South Africa, to a large extent, the structure of the education system has broken down in the last 15, 20 years quite significantly. It appears to me that the educational structures that create our police and that put the average policeman on the ground in South Africa seem to have deteriorated to the point where often police are in roles, not all of them again. I 100% agree with you when you say that there are some outstanding police officers in this country. I've met some amazing detectives and some amazing colonels and captains and people doing unbelievably great work. I worked with a bunch of different police in doing research into child-related violence in South Africa. And it renewed my hope for the South African police force, because I really dealt with some competence. On the other side of that coin, I've seen some absolutely horrendous police officers, people completely incompetent to even carry a firearm. And I was wondering if it's possible for you to speak on your experience of simultaneously the concretization of the private security industry and its ability to improve. And at the same time, what are your views on the structures that make policemen into quality policemen?
Yeah, no. We've seen subs of which now they use our taxpayers' money. They train many of their police, like your tax force in the subs and TRTs and some of the detectives. But there are many that will end up resigning and joining the private sector. Now, with the private security, the good part is the salary is good, by the way. The salary is good and they've got more resources, by the way. The only challenge that I've got with the private security ourselves is we tend to, at some point now, think that we are more powerful, or we are abusing the state resource. We tap into the state resource. And for that, it leaves a room of capturing as well. Because some of policemen, they channel some of the resources or influence into the police, knowing that when they resign, they join that particular security company. That is the problem that I've seen. Now, and this one, irrespective, I know most people, they don't want to talk about it, but I feel 100% the president was misled. The Makadu shooting, where 18 people got killed. The 19th one, by the way, was found under the bed the next day, of which, obviously, if there's a crime scene, it must be to pick up the cartridges and the likes. They must have seen that body that day. All right, fine. They saw it the next day. It was found the next day. Lord knows why. Now, out of those criminals, some of them, I helped the police to arrest them, to profile them. In other cases, cash in transit, I know I've got their profiles. They've been arrested quite some time, numerous times and the likes. They are criminals. They belong in jail, or they belong wherever they are now, killed. Good, we applaud them. But in the very same house, there was a maid and a garden boy. Now, if you call that operation an intelligent-driven, police, they've got resources. There's special task force, like we said. There's NIU in the police. There's POP, public order policing, who can deal with the riots or hostage situation. They even drive those armored cars to a point that they can even ram our front door here, wearing bulletproofs, and even arrest us or get to their targets, the ones that are holding the guns, shooting back at them, and leave the innocent one. If it's an intelligent-driven operation, they need to dispatch those. They've got that at their disposal. But guess what? There were private securities that were influential in that particular scene because of the interest of doing business in the cash in transit business. Now, if I'm running a company, Beast Racers, cash in transit, and my business every time gets robbed, if I want to send out the message to the criminals, it is not the right way to send the message. Those are apartheid tactics. It was used by the special force. But I'm glad IPD jumped in and said we need to investigate this matter. They've got a right to investigate. Now let's see, because the alibi that they gave to everybody in the nation, we had an interview with them, by the way, and I raised this matter, but they gave the explanation that no, if you knew of a crime, why didn't you call Tentrop or the police to tell them that there are criminals in the house? Then I said to them, guys, do you understand what is happening? You haven't done your research properly. The criminals, they perform rituals in the backs of those rifles, explosives and the likes. They lock them up in one room. They come and watch an action movie. They don't talk about the scene. Already they know what they are doing. They are just waiting for the time. So how do you assume the maid doing ironing to understand that, oh, these people, why are they watching a movie? Why have they locked that room performing rituals? You don't know. You haven't seen. But to surround the house and even kill innocent people, that's inhuman. The criminals, they can kill them, it's fine. But that is the mistake. And you cannot call such an operation intelligent driven. I call it a capturing by us, the private sector, to influence the police to push a certain narrative. And they still need to explain what was the role of the private security in that space of the Makado shooting, because it's international. Everybody talks about Makado. And let's hear what the IPID will say. Because now they say, let's say now you go on the mate's phone or the garden boy's phone and you say, no, they didn't call the police. You check on their phone, you find that they were calling that dysfunctional 10-111. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I completely agree with you in terms of, I would say that our intelligence clusters and our intelligence gathering in South Africa, our abilities, I'm not old enough to really understand what it was like before. I know that the apartheid state was obviously very good at using intelligence structures to abuse portions of the population. I'm aware of that. But in my lifetime, as I've been old enough to understand these complicated structures, they seem to be either completely absent or completely dysfunctional. There was a time where there were certain jobs where you didn't have to pay people that much money because there was pride in the job and it was a calling. School teachers were like that, nurses were like that, police were like that. And it's gotten down to the point where the working conditions for a lot of police and a lot of nurses and other civil servants, firefighters, for example, the working conditions have become so bad that people are no longer prepared to stay in the job. And what happens is you get a mechanism where the good people, the people that have options, the people that are competent and go elsewhere, they do go elsewhere. They go to private security. If it's a teacher, they go work in corporate or whatever it is. And what happens is over time, you're always left with the rubbish inside the system, the incompetent, the good ones always leaving, the incompetent ones always staying. And we've seen that with Eskom. And I think we're starting to see it now in a lot of education sectors, a lot of universities, as you'll be aware, and that we're seeing it in the police, we're seeing it in hospitals now, with the nurses, exiting en masse. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the job is becoming unbearable. The vehicles, policemen, the vehicles are never working. You arrest the same person multiple times. They keep coming back out. It's like you said, there's people that you are aware of right now, maybe in your community, and you can't even get any assistance, from the police. And I think a large part of this is the fact that our police leadership, and I don't have a problem with saying this, I'm not in the industry, he can try and cancel me if he wants. I believe that people like Bheki Cele are, to a large extent, they are morally and intellectually bereft, that they shouldn't be in the leadership, in those leadership positions, that they appear to just make blunder after blunder. And we have police that I've seen, low-ranking police officers in South Africa. There's one, KwaZulu-Natal, I can't remember his name. He's brilliant. And I am just wondering what you think about how influential the ANC has become in terms of cadre deployment in the police and in the security structures that is helping to feed the system where we're continually losing good players to private sector and keeping the riffraff.
Yeah, no, that's a most good question, actually. And I'm glad today I got a chance to answer it. I've spoken about state security and their role, overseeing the well-being of the country to a point that, I think in the era of the current president, no beef about him. He's a good man. The only mistake that he did after being conferred into that office, I remember the function was where Hetfield, the inauguration. Now, the first mistake that he did was to dissolve or dismantle state security and moving it where? To his office in the Union Building. Now, he left many of those members from intelligence. I will say furious, and they didn't like the move that he has done. That's why today we are sitting with July unrest, unresolved, by the way. Unresolved. The government doesn't know who are the instigators. That's why today we are sitting with issues whereby a foreign country can tell you about a terrorist attack over the weekend and stop the economy of Sandton. And then it's water under the bridge. That's why today we are sitting with issues of Lady R, of which, by the way, it did load weapons, but not from our country, from one of our foreign SADC region. And some information is not meant for public knowledge, by the way. But because of this issue, this whole of failing to unite state security, it has led us to all this shenanigans. Lady R issue, and then after the Lady R issue, we get an apology, but that apology has got a but. It is not an apology. I mean, you and myself, we are academic. It is not an apology. I apologize, but
yeah.
You understand? And then now to show what we call a political, how do you call it? It's more like an espionage. It's called political intimidation. Okay, fine. Let this Lady R be under the bridge, under the water, but we're going to choose you to be the leading of some research, research, then there's the man. That is political, this thing. Interrogation. Intimidation, rather. That's political intimidation. Now, out of all those things, everybody's watching a movie. But the Eskom, as a national key point, and others SOEs as national key points, they are not supposed to be sabotaged to that point whereby state security cannot sit with the president. I'm not talking about this net joint that they've established. Those people, they are pushing their own agendas there and business in the procurement. I'm talking about state security, proper people who are trained. What is espionage? Officers who are trained. What is counterintelligence? How to collect the information, how to gather and understand and channel it. Hawks, there's your guy. Subs, detective, tactile, there's your guy. But what do? Our state security is sleeping on duty. They go to work at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. You find nobody at the office. And in fact, they use the mentality, if you work there, they tell you that, no, there's a basement here. You know, in the old days, if you become a problem, you'll end up in the basement, then nobody will know about you. So people are fearing for their life. There's nothing that is happening. But many members of state security are left disgruntled. And if you are a leader, you fail to see that and unite, then your leadership structure fails. So that is the problem that we are sitting with at the moment. Now, coming to issues of subs. Subs also, the leadership in the cluster of the so-called detectives and the crime intelligence, there's some serious fiction, irrespective of the budget, their budget being cut there. They are pulling far apart because of, that's why even in every area where there's high number of crime, and I've said it even in Deep Slot, in Sophia Town, which is your Westbury, in Cape Town also, some of the Belleville and the likes, you cannot have a high number of crime and not reshuffle the station command. You know what's the duty of the station commander? The station commander communicates with the Vispol policing, and the detective commander. They gather the information. They must know in their township, if cars are stolen, where are they parked after being dismantled the tracker? Who is aiding and abetting criminals? Who has got rooms at the back of their house, but you see luxury cars during the day parked there? They must know. Now, immediately after knowing, they channel that to crime intelligence. Crime intelligence then verifies that no, the Ferrari that Calvin is driving, indeed, is a stolen Ferrari, or indeed, it was purchased through illicit money. That is what we call organized crime. You activate poker. Just with that. You don't wait for a complainant to come knock and say, I want to write a statement, a sworn statement A1, or an affidavit about Calvin. No. Just from that information, on people coming to give that information, you open your door, they give you that information. That's how you channel it. And that's how you deal with organized crime. Now, the intelligence and the subs detectives, they are pulling far apart. But we always see on the media, they say, no, they've just revived them. I don't know, because it has always been their mandate. Why only now, every time there's a crisis? No, we have been reviving them. We've been reviving them. That is the problem that we are sitting with.
I always find police stations at the station level to be a mess from the outside. Every time I walk into a police station, there's a police officer walks up to me, says, "We've run out of pens. Can I please can I have a pen?" I mean, things like that. Guys complaining that there's no working vehicles, and I think, as I said, a large part of this has to do with the incompetence at the top of the SAPS, the over-bloated top leadership positions who are paid too much, and their incompetence is bled down now to the lowest levels of the police. Then we've got cadre deployment issues. We've got ANC interference, like Ramaphosa bringing the security cluster inside his own wheelhouse. But I have been watching something. I've actually been watching this evolve over the last year, and I'd like to get your comment on something. So we know that there's incompetence that is impacting these clusters. We know that there's political interference that is impacting these intelligence clusters, security clusters, policing, law and order, even the court systems, especially at a lower level, especially at, say, a magistrate's level. And while we see this complete breakdown, there's also something nefarious happening in South Africa now. And we saw it at the start of the Lady R, where there were South African recce's or task team operators, special operators. They're actually the most expensive, or you might want to say the best trained military operators, definitely in South Africa, maybe even on the continent of Africa. And these guys seem to have been deployed as a nefarious actor, acting on the behalf of state role players. And for me, it seems that there's been an evolution of corruption in the state security cluster. We had first the Lady R, and then we had this follow-up incident where this foreign national gentleman was kidnapped from the Mall of Africa. These guys have now been traced. They have been found to be registered on-duty special operators. And it appears to me like these guys are getting orders from the top. So not only do we have the incompetence bleeding down, do we have the political interference bleeding down, but there seems to me now like there are units of the highest levels of our security clusters in South Africa that are captured and now operating on behalf of Mafia-style politicians. I honestly don't know how to describe it any other way.
Yeah, let's start with the issue of the police stations. Yeah, you are right. They are under-resourced. But at the same time, you find one police detective in the station level. He's got dockets of murder, culpable homicide. He's got dockets of car theft. He's got multiple dockets, multiple issues to tackle. Now, because of the overloading of that work, some of these dockets, they are not properly prepared to go to court. And once they go to court, what do? They throw them out of court. The cases get withdrawn, and most of the communities, they get furious. Let's take, for instance, issues of guns. A gun, once you catch somebody with a gun, it must go on a ballistic. Now, because of this load shedding, if you're processing a gun for a ballistic at a ballistic center.
That's CFR, Central Firearms Registry.
Yes, in Pretoria. Now, if the load shedding kicks in, the whole process must start again. So there's a backlog of reports of ballistic through the guns. And that report must go where? In the docket for the police to go now to take it to court. Now, the next appearance at court, they ask him, where is the analysis?
We've set him up for failure.
Already there for failure. So once the case, they say, no, the defense say, no, we cannot postpone this case 3-4 times. We've been postponing for long. Let's withdraw it and then we'll bring it on the roll once you are ready, or even throw the matter out of court. So you see, even the load shedding plays a big effect on this matter. But at the same time, most police are under-resourced. But also with the little resource that they have, they also have their own influence. And one have, I don't know if anybody has ever said this in South Africa, tribalism also plays a big role within police station. I'll give you an example. You go to KZN, you bring somebody from Limpopo to be the station commander there. They resist. They don't support that person. You bring somebody from KZN, you take him to Northwest. They resist. So it's that issue. And now they form groups to fight in issues of tribalism and even fight for the small resources. They'll tell you that, no, the Shanganis, they like this guy. No. So-and-so even takes it home. The vendors, the paddies, they what. So there's also that element of tribalism. Hey, this white man, he wants to control us. Hey, we don't listen to him. Oh, they even listen to him and, the like. And just on that point, I've worked with police for quite a long time. To a point that I know if I walk with even a constable in any police station, he asks, can I use the computer? I want to check if the car is stolen. Just as you must see them. You give the person the computer. But I can walk with the brigadier, a black person. The guy's at the church office. No, you must bring your what you call. So there's those type of issues. And I don't know how do I pronounce it, lack of respect to one another. But at the same time, that's why even with GBV, I say most cases are not properly ventilated because police are having so many dockets. They even come to a point when you come to the station fighting or the wife fighting with you, they say, no, man, go home and resolve your stuff. You don't need to open the case. You get such things like, hey, I don't have a pen, but go and resolve things at home and, the likes. Now, coming to the same issue of the closest police station or the nearest police station, we also have an issue of initiation schools. We still don't know if a child dies at the initiation school. Do we consider that as a murder or what? But if they read the stats, is that murder of that child of initiation school, is it recorded? Because the government hasn't yet educated our people. What is the difference between an illegal initiation school and an illegal initiation school? They all have their reasons. Some will say, no, it's because of this ones, they don't fast enough. This one was dehydrated. This one had HIV, was not tested. There are many factors, but the stats at the police station, they are somehow not properly ventilated or analyzed.
If I can ask you why we're on this topic now, two questions, just to see whether they're true or not. There's a common rumor going around that many South African police detectives can have hundreds of dockets on their books at any time. In other words, they could have up to 200, 300, 400 cases that one detective is investigating. I've heard this. Is this true?
No, definitely it's true. I mean, just down the road, commercial crimes. You see how, Senten, or let's say Gauteng, is the main hub of Africa. There's a lot of fraud, scams that are taking place. And then they investigated at commercial crime in Joburg. But you go to their basement, you check how many vehicles those detectives, all of them, do they have? One vehicle, 6 of them, they share the vehicle. Now that one must go to court. This one must go to subpoena the bank. This one must go to a magistrate. This one must go to look for the suspect. So then they are under-resourced. So once that happens, you get a lot of somehow resistance, or some cases are not. Only when you knock at their door, then they accept you to now look into the matter. And even myself, as the time when I was fully in the private investigative cluster, clients will approach me and say, go and follow up on my matter. I mean, I've been knocking at the police station, I get frustration. Once I get to the police station, I introduce myself to the detective that I'm a private investigator. Resistance starts there. So I've used the trick to go to the police station and say, I'm an informant. Maybe the information that I have can help you, sir or ma'am. That's the only time they let. But if I go, I say I'm a private investigator. Yes, sir. I'm busy making an appointment. I'll see you so and so. So they know the importance also of the informant. That, okay, this one I can maybe get something just to close the case. But coming as a private investigator is like you come in to now reprimand them and even check their performance. So that is the issue. But now to answer now on the issue that you spoke about, that foreign guys, others kidnapping one another, it is true. And we've got a lot of rogue units, let me call them that way.
I like that term.
Yeah, we've got a lot of rogue units. You know, I sometimes get, especially politicians, they'll say, hey, I can't finish a call for 5 minutes. I think I've been bugged. I've been tapped, man. Maybe you know some people at state security. My advice normally says there are a lot of rogue units. Many agencies can actually come into your phone because they've got grabber machines. Some machines, they work at a particular radius. You need to be close to what you call the local base station, the tower, the GPS. So if you are at the tower and I'm closer to the tower here, I can actually use a particular grabber, the IMSI catcher, they call it, to listen to your phone and even get SMSs from your phone. Then there's a one that the state security they use. It's national. It's built in the hub of South Africa. We won't disclose the location. That one is used by the national. But there are so many. And we've seen there was a raid in Bryanston where they found the machine that I'm talking, the IMSI catcher, and a van and some motorbikes of some mafias that were assassinating for some order or what have you. So it's becoming a problem. There are so many rogue units to a point that some of them, they cater for business people even around here in South Africa. Some they even, because the mafia business, especially when you talk about issues of diamonds or even commodities like gold, platinum, cobalt, some of these rogue units, they monitor and ensure that their activities, even here in South Africa, is well established. Now, I've got another problem now in South Africa. I realized our number one was found with dollars in what you call? Whichever pala they call it. Yeah. Now, obviously, there are rumors. I received some calls some way back to say, no, that guy in Dubai is actually not the guy who brought the money. There's actually somebody who flew a private jet to OR Tambo. And the time when this thing started now to heat up, that person jumped into the private jet and went back home. But the particular person, it is alleged he established a vaccine factory somewhere in KZN. But it's fine. All right. Now I'm coming to speak about the dollars. I want to get into the dollars. American CIA and FBI, they closely monitor their dollars. The reason being, there was so much Somalian piracy of hijacking the vessels. Sometime, I can't remember the years. Now, there are so much dollars that were circulated and monitored on who's spending those dollars, because that was a big issue. Many vessels were hijacked. Even some of the foreign countries, there was a show, as they go past, they will raise up the American flag so that their vessels don't get hijacked. You remember Barack Obama, there was Captain George, who was hijacked in the vessel, and he gave a call to those Somalian pirates and said, I give you 48 hours to release George. And they refused. And the Americans, they came and they did their job properly. Yes. And they got the George back. But that was a big issue within the CIA and the FBI. Now, why are they not interested in wanting to know at least one note that money, it is not one of theirs or not? That is the challenge that we have. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, it is what it is. Rogue units are operating in South Africa, big time, and they act with impunity, by the way.
And for me, it's incredibly worrying because the way that this has escalated is just unbelievable. I mean, they essentially have I personally know a couple of special forces operators and have trained with them over the last couple of years, last decade or so. And these people are frighteningly well skilled. They have a very broad range of very specific skills. And it appears to me that we have rogue units of special forces operators that are basically being hired as in cubbies. I mean, that's just how it looks to me. I don't want to oversimplify it. But that gentleman, that detective who was from the Hawks, who was investigating the matter with the Lady R, that assassination when he was shot in his vehicle, I know many, many, many marksmen, some of the best marksmen in the country. Whoever pulled that trigger is a special human being. It's not an average guy. Even a person who's been hunting their entire life, that vehicle was moving on a highway, 120, 100 Ks an hour. Who even knows how fast? To get 2 shots off, I mean, I just wonder where this is going. How much further do you think that this could possibly escalate? Do you think it's possible that our special forces units have been captured and are just working under the guise of nefarious state operators, politicians, or politically connected people?
Yeah, look, there's a guy who once gave me a statement that before you break the law, you must know it. So I think these people, they know how we operate. They know our strong points and weak points. To a point that, and speaking of Captain Matjiu, that was his name. He was my friend. I used to work with him at Eskom. I was one of his informants, by the way, before even contracted by Eskom on the recovery of the so-called ghost vending machine, but we'll speak about it. Now, he was a very good man, that guy.
Yeah, he had
very determined.
His reputation was...
He sleeps on the docket, and he works very hard. He knew what he was doing, and he was a good listener. But may his soul rest in peace. So coming to the issue of this foreign guys, and even acting with the locals, because to establish some of these shenanigans or rogue units, they need people who are still on the ground. So that's why I'm saying, in the leadership whereby the leader fails to unite state security, because look, you can wake up as a president tomorrow and be the most unknowledgeable president without state security. They must tell you who did what last night, who's planning this, who's doing what, who's doing this and that. So what I'm saying is, those other disgruntled members from the espionage of our state security, from your counterintelligence, some of them, they know how to infiltrate these people. They are in relationship with some of these people. And, it's more like they want to overthrow the government. So it's act of treason, by the way. One who is found with such acts must be charged with treason. They are actually overthrowing the government. But another thing, as most of the time I think and see it, and I've analyzed, it's, I know it could be possible or not possible, but they need to have a bill whereby even our state officials, those with the diplomatic passports, the red ones, those ones, they're a problem. So remember, they fly in and out, even in jets or whatever they fly, then they don't get searched. And we know that some of them, especially when it comes to rough diamonds, they are channeled through that. Most of our African leaders, even in the military, they've got properties. So some are renting properties around here. Their kids, they go to school around here. Most of their market, to even polish some of these rough diamonds, they are well established here in South Africa. And we know of quite a few, and they don't play. You steal their diamond, or you somehow tamper with their operation, you're finished.
It's amazing that you bring this subject up, because I'm just going to lead with it, go straight into the next segue, because my next question is this. I'll give you a brief run-up. We obviously know about because you're mentioning leaders and governments in Africa, especially the Southern African region, where we have a lot of minerals and commodities, mining and minerals mining, and commodities harvesting. And what we know now, because of very good investigative journalism, is that these commodities, like in Zimbabwe, for example, are being pulled out the ground by senior politicians like Mnangagwa, it appears, the number one himself. And he is using his own private networks to pull these minerals out of state resource enterprises and move those minerals. In Zimbabwe's case, it appears to be mainly gold. It could also be commodities like tobacco. And they pull those commodities, they trade them off, and they move that money to places like Dubai or UAE, for example, where their finances are protected. Now, we know that this is happening in Zimbabwe. That's become quite obvious. My feeling is that this is taking place on a fairly widespread scale in Southern Africa, in other regions. I think that it's obviously going on in Mozambique. I think with the diamonds, it's going on in Namibia. And I definitely think that there are state actors in South Africa. I'm talking about politicians very high up, maybe private role players, but politically connected role players who are doing the exact same thing in South Africa and creating vast quantities of illicit cash flows. We even know, for example, how some of these people are in bed with the tobacco cash flow operations in Zimbabwe. And I was just wondering if there is any chance that you could expand on this idea, if you could offer us any stories or any information, or even maybe if you just have a hunch about something, because right now I sound like a conspiracy theorist. I do a lot of research into economics and politics and various things. And what happens is I get all these pieces of information and I've kind of just got a hunch. But every now and then I'm telling someone and my friend goes, but next thing you're going to say you believe in the tooth fairy. Is there anything that you could say to me that I could go back to some of my friends in the future and say, you see, I'm not crazy?
Yeah, I guess there's that narrative where they say where there's a smoke, there's a fire. So if you collect many pieces through your researches, and all of them, they lead you to this theory, one can say you are 100%. But when you speak of this guy, the President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, he's not acting alone, and he's acting with instruction. We must bear in mind that it is not only him in Africa who's have the interest of acting on behalf of the military. So the instructions come from the military. In Zimbabwe, you cannot rule without the blessings of the military. You can have nice speeches and for the people, but the military, they are in control. And we've seen a lot of false play in the killings of even some of the military guys. And the military, there was a scenario. In fact, I think it was around 2008 when industrial diamonds were mostly introduced. If you remember the industrial diamonds.
It's a smaller, lower
rocks.
quality.
Yes. Yeah. Most of them, they were sent and sold here in South Africa through even our diamond center here in Joburg, in Johannesburg, a diamond center. Many maids, garden boys, farmers, you name them. Everybody had the access to that small hill or whatever the hill or the mountain to pick up this industrial diamond. The minute the military realized, they started regulating that because they saw that people are making money. So it is only through them now you can get industrial diamond or any business. They are very influential to a point that, like I said, most of their kids, they even attend school here in South Africa. There are serious vehicles like your 4x4s and SUVs, and you're speaking of Toyota Lexus. It's a very expensive car. It's very strong, highly built. But you see them, some driving there in Africa. Some of them, they are stolen here from South Africa. They are smuggled to Africa to be used. You find a child of a general attending school with that car, or somebody in the as a political figure attending their function with those cars. But in exchange, most of them, if they don't have dollars to pay them, they are paid maybe with a container of cigarettes, or award them with uncut diamonds, or even those particular diamonds. But there's a lot of cars that are stolen daily in South Africa, and most of them, you can't find them. They are sent to Africa. Who affords them in Africa? Because any person who's normal, a good ethical person, earns a salary, can buy a car through the bank, they don't buy those things. Only those mafias in the underworld, they are the ones who will buy. Because once the car is gone out, our system cannot pick it up. I mean, their system can't pick it up that it's been stolen here. Only Interpol can do that.
I've heard, and this is very interesting, I'd like to get your opinion on this, that a lot of these cars that are hijacked, especially in South Africa, especially the ones that move over to Mozambique, other parts of Africa as well, but Mozambique, that they actually are paid in drugs most of the time, that they don't like to be paid in cash. So they trade the stolen vehicle for an amount of drugs. They then bring the drugs back to South Africa and then they sell the drugs. So this is actually, I've heard that there's a synergy between the stolen car market and the drug market, and they each help each other out to be more successful and to be more effective enterprises, illegal criminal enterprises. And yeah, that they almost have created an ecosystem, because that's what we have here. We have in Southern Africa, we've got the military, we've got politically connected people, and we've got people with private interests like tobacco farms or whatever, or gold mines, and they all work together in a little ecosystem to make each other wealthy, to keep each other empowered, to move cash flows across the country. So we've got that ecosystem. So I'm not going crazy. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There is something
No,
there.
you're not. In fact, Mozambique, not only drugs, even weapons, automatic guns, most of them, they derive from Mozambique. So they do those type of transaction. But mostly, besides drugs, there is a product called ephedrine.
Yes. Like cop syrup.
Yes. Now, ephedrine, one used to, before it was regulated, you used to get it over the counter in the pharmacies. But the reason being, you can actually manufacture teak with that particular teak or crystal meth. Now, it is in high demand, to a point that there is one factory that is licensed here in South Africa, and I think they've got their factory somewhere in Joburg established. They were robbed of drums of kilograms of that thing, of that particular, only that, because of these criminals, that thing is in high demand.
Yeah, it's
once you get it, it's like you've got the full drug, because guys that manufacture crystal meth and teak, they rely on having that. And even some who do what you call in the street name Popomala. Popomala is a mandrax. The market is big in Cape Town. They need some of those components. So this particular component, syndicates send cars to Mozambique, they get that particular. Because with Mozambique, somehow they can smuggle it through their harbor. In South Africa, it is regulated. If they catch you with 5 kilograms of that, you are in big trouble. You must explain how you got that, how did you buy it? Because they realized that it was the main product to manufacture drugs.
I think that's just the most insane story. I just think a lot of South Africans aren't aware of, just how sophisticated the drug trade and drug manufacturing trade is in South Africa, and how prevalent these kinds of organizations are. Now that we're talking about the cross-border trade of things like ephedrine, stolen vehicles, gold, cash, and we're talking about this at quite a high level now. We're talking about politically connected people, organized crime, syndicates, that kind of thing. If we can bring this down just a little bit, we have seen a huge rise in the prevalence of zama-zamas in South Africa and illegal mining. And with this organized cross-border ecosystem that's going on now with the cars, the gold, the drugs, human trafficking, guns, I was wondering how you feel the zama-zamas play a role in this ecosystem, and whether or not they sit outside of the ecosystem, this criminal ecosystem, with the cars and the drugs and the politicians and everything moving across borders in South Africa, almost as their own little thing, or are they all tied up with other organized crime enterprises, if you can call it that? For example, are zamas involved with drug smugglers and car theft syndicates, or are they kind of just their own thing?
Yeah, look, when we speak of Zamazamas, you get what we call, they've got categories, Fumo gang and the likes. So, but you get those categories that go underground. They dig for what you call, they've got the skill to do that. But another thing, quick one, I heard one of the politicians say, it's because of these people, they used to be employed in those mines, they've got a skill, this less employment, that's why now they came back and digging for gold in those same mine. But if you check the person that you arrest in that mine, he's 20 years old, or maybe 25. That mine was abandoned 40 years ago. Yeah. Now, how do you now justify that? No, he used to work at that mine. But let alone that, you get categories that go underground, get the gold, then you get the pendugas on the outside. Those that go underground, their life is there underground. Even now, they say they dispatch SANDF for 6 months. You'll find those boys, they are down there for a long time. And then they come out from the other hole, they go to a shebeen, they collect booze and drinks, and food. They go back. Their life is there underground. So they're always underground. Now, you get the pendugas, they'll try and wash the gold and,
they refine it.
Yes, they try and refine it. Then you get the guys now that will go to the market and sell this thing. But they sell now to the big guys who now takes it to issues like where there's big smelters, like your countries that you spoke about.
So there's a guy that buys from the penduga.
Yeah.
And then he goes to a bigger buyer, and that bigger buyer is buying from many
so they
penduga operations.
Yes, they collect for many. And they've got smelters and what you call this thing, they can process this particular gold. Now, it's a big syndicate to a point that even those big guys now, if you check them for SARS, they claim for VAT, some of them, because they try and smuggle to legalize some of this product. They will say, okay, we insure this is our VAT return, and what if they know how to prepare all those people. They send it in big quantity. Even they can send it as a gold brick, for instance. So those are the big guys now, the big fish. Now, those big fish, they know and have a strategy on even capturing the system on the ground. Like politicians, some of the politicians, they know how to facilitate that. Equally so with the cigarette smuggling. Cigarette smuggling is a big business, by the way. So the guys that smuggles the cigarette, the further you go down, the price becomes high. What do I mean by that? Coming from base border, and by the way, we don't have borders. I call them toll gates. Some of them, there's a fixed price to pay. I don't know, maybe they've got a new unit is working hard. But myself, I've been up and down borders without a passport. Now, they bring the cigarette. If you sell your truck in Limpopo, Polokwane, you get less money because the risk is less. Now, coming further down to Johannesburg, the prices increase. Going further down to KZN and Durban, because of the risk of driving down there from the border, prices become
they're
high.
doing risk management.
We've seen most of the truck nowadays, they camouflage coming through Botswana, but in those fuel tankers. So they stuff in the fuel tank. So even when you raid, you'll think, oh, no, it's just petrol. It's it's cigarette in loose stuffed. Now, the same business is booming even in prison, in the township and villages, because that's our people where the market of smoking this particular cigarettes. Now, some of the smugglers, they in cahoot even with SARS members, whereby customs, by the way, where they use what we call a bonded warehousing. Now, bonded warehousing, it means they are in transit. They just gonna store them maybe in Cape Town, but some shipment to wherever, other countries.
But if they're bonded, they're registered. People know about them. They're not.
No. If it's bonded, even when you are a policeman, you come for a raid, they show you the certificate. And even customs, they can come and say, no, the cigarettes are not for sale. It's bonded.
Okay.
So he's all right.
I
You
understand.
can give the cigarettes. And those ones who know the modus operandi of bonded warehousing certificates, they are also well established in some of the top structures in the police. I've raided many places with the police. Obviously, I do not do the searching. That's tampering with the scene. That will be outside, maybe outside the warehouse at the gate. I've seen top brass of the police coming and say, "You are captain. Who sent you here? Do you have a search warrant? Okay, leave the scene. I'll take it from here onwards." And I know many police are scared to talk about that, but I'm speaking on their behalf. There are many places which are raided on counterfeits, but once you are about to hit the arrest, the raid can be called off.
Those are simply...
Some are successful, even on counterfeit goods. But the guys, they are well established. They know what they are doing. You go further down to Joburg, just here in Brimley, Yeoville, Hillbrow, the other side of Joburg, GP, Mayfair, where there's a lot of kidnappings as well, by the way. There are many warehouses where they stole counterfeit, even cigarettes. But go and touch them now, even with a search warrant. You are called in 2 hours to leave the scene.
I know for certain that this is a result of captured policemen, in other individuals or groups of policemen, or captured whole police stations or investigative units. And my biggest worry is that once you've captured a little unit of a police station, or even just a high-ranking police member, to then go the next step up in the system and capture people in the magistrate's court related to whatever comes of it's too easy. It's too easy. It would be impossible for me to believe. So there's a large narrative that goes on in South Africa to say that our courts aren't captured, that the judiciary is independent. And I definitely believe that at the highest levels, maybe at the SCA, the high courts even, especially at the con court. But at the lower level courts, like the magistrates' courts, I think that there's plenty of capture that's gone on in these courts. There's plenty of corruption, lots of bribery, incompetent magistrates. It would be impossible for me to believe that if you've got a group of high-ranking police officers that are involved in nefarious activities, that they're not going to drag that culture into the nearest court.
Yeah, look, the court industry, why most people say it's captured, there is a lot of corruption, obviously. There are some clerks and administrators at court that papers disappear, they fiddle with files, charge sheet goes missing. So obviously it shows that they are paid. And that's why we were calling on the issue, after Minister of Defense spoke in that cluster the time they reported about organized crime issues. Because she said, we arrest these people, but why are they out the next day? So we can advise her, we need lifestyle auditing from these administrators, the clerks. They are living above their salary means. Now, speaking of judges, there so far, nothing has happened as yet. But myself, I know some of the judges who've got business interest, either directly or indirectly, through the spouse or they themselves. They've got companies that are registered. So I wonder if they have declared those companies. Because if not, then there's a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, yeah.
So I cannot be a judge and have a company that supplies oil at Eskom and then come and preside over a particular matter of the same modus operandi or same file, or even a different file, but the same scenario. So I don't know whether to call it capturing or what, but that can be included in the lifestyle audit. Audit all the judges, see what is their interest, including NPOs and NPCs. Because another method that I've realized in South Africa, these NPOs and NPC, most of them, they are doing a great job. We applaud them. But some is a way of channeling financial flows.
Yeah, it seems to me that the rot has crept into many of the places that optimistic South Africans are hoping that the rot has not creeped. But it definitely appears to be there. And the only way that we are going to actively combat this, or one of the only realistic mechanisms we're going to have to combat this kind of thing in South Africa going forward, is to support whistleblowers and to find a way to create mechanism. I know you've spoken out on this problem before, where essentially if you are a whistleblower, you get two different kinds of whistleblowers. For me, you get rogue whistleblowers, where you get one brave individual who turns around and says, like a Babita Deokaran, the late Babita Deokaran, where they turn around and they go, I'm not going to stand for this. This is wrong. And they come out on their own accord and they speak out, and their lives are at just the kind of risk that they put themselves at. It's absolutely ridiculous. I personally don't know if I would be brave enough to do that personally if I was put in that kind of situation, especially given my knowledge of how violent many of these situations turn out to be. And the whistleblowers, so you were saying just now that I'd like to speak on behalf of these policemen that can't say anything because they are trapped. But if you are a whistleblower, let's say in a court or a police station, let's say you're a court clerk and you pick up one of your colleagues is doing something illegal or unethical. I mean, what advice would you have for these people? Because, the chances of them getting killed is absolutely insane. If it's someone like you or, say, Wayne Duvenage from Alta, you have almost to an extent, you're a whistleblower of sorts, but you've institutionalized yourself. So you could organize a meteor, and Nkabi could organize a meteor to strike Calvin Rafadi down tomorrow, but there's an institution that you've created behind you, people that are coming up behind you, same as Wayne Duvenage, who will pick up the torch and they'll carry on going. You are, in a sense, almost protected by the own network that you've made around yourself. But if you are not in this kind of position, if you're just a clerk in an office, somebody who does auditing at a state-owned enterprise, what advice would you give them? How would you tell them to prepare themselves to speak out?
Yeah, let me start by saying a lot of people, remember I said, as the people, we are the intelligent on the ground. So I equally say people are pregnant with information and good use of information that can root out the so-called corruption and the likes. But people are scared to talk. And, people in life, they tend to go where they can see there is decisive action. So most of the platforms where you report a crime, let's take, for instance, Eskom. There are many people that call that toll-free, whatever, the corruption line. But there are matters they don't see the light of the day, or they are not exposed for many times, to a point that they will resort to look who's got the strong teeth that they can channel their message to. So if they can see that, this one has got teeth now on our behalf, they channel the information there. So, people, they fear for their lives. They've got families. I mean, we are not born to say, let me be killed by anybody I'm about to expose. It is not nice. Even ourselves, we're always watching our backs. I don't go partying. I don't go to places where they invite me and I don't know them. But what I'm saying is people are pregnant with information, and just be careful where you channel it. Because where you channel it, it must be anonymous. And where you channel it, they must have strong teeth. You must see your message, whatever that you channel, going out there, tested, and crime eradicated, corruption eradicated. But we see less of that. We just see less of that. And I've given you the example of Eskom. And I remember I was saying in one of my interviews that Eskom, they protect one another. And I know it because I've been on the ground there. I'm not just an armchair critic of Eskom. I've been there.
Yeah, I see you've been very involved.
So what happens is there are information that see the light of the day, but there are others that are shoved away. Then I was called by one of the managers of the forensic department. Hey, come, give us some of the information. I gave it to them to date. I gave them last year. To date, nothing. So imagine an ordinary employee who experiences corruption on a daily basis, channels the same information, and nothing happens. The frustration that they can go through. At least myself, I'm busy with other things. Now, a person who sees it every day, then it becomes a problem. So we need people who are skilled and know how to liaise with whistleblowers, knows the discreet and how to channel the information and to what relevant department to be the ones that information comes to them in every department.
Yeah, I've often said to people that depending on who you were, if you came to me with whistleblower information, I might just say to you to just forget it and go on with your life. And I know that it doesn't sound like I'm the most upstanding citizen, but when you have, cases, where it's a mother with three small children, for example, you can't provide them with any kind of information or any kind of solution to go here. You will be safe. These people will look after you. You're going to be okay. There's just no guarantees. In South Africa, our Nkabi culture is just off the hook. We obviously get the foreign assassins that they bring in from Eastern Europe. We have the local guys that come in largely from KwaZulu-Natal, and they are just murdering and killing absolutely everyone. And I'm glad to hear that I'm not glad, but it's interesting to hear that you say that you watch where you go, you watch who you interact with, you don't just trust everyone. The work that you do is so unbelievably valuable to this country. And I don't think South Africa appreciates just how important people like you are, because you are now the blue line. You are now, along with certain lawyers and people working, for civil society, you are now the people keeping the wolf from the door. So we definitely appreciate people like you, but man, look after yourself. And I hope that you, if there's anybody out there that has some kind of information, or people that might just need a little bit of advice or a little bit of help, I don't want to volunteer Kelvin, but somebody like him, somebody like Yusuf Abramji, Wayne Duvenage, Carte Blanche, contact one of these media organizations, contact one of these industry role players. There's just a ton of opportunity to really help South Africa with its issue with large and widespread criminality. So there are people like that in South Africa. There are Kelvin Rafadis out there. So if you're a whistleblower and you're scared and you need advice, or you just need a little bit of information or somebody to point you in the right direction, there are people that are living with the same kinds of fears that you are, with the same kinds of concerns that you are, maybe even with the same kind of information that you have. So my advice, along with Kelvin's, would be that if you have this kind of problem and you feel that you need to stand up, reach out to somebody who can be in your corner. The last thing, now that we're on this issue of violence, we're coming to the end now, but we are obviously talking about killings and that kind of thing, and we are now obviously in the immediate build up to the election. And we've seen an evolution in political killings. So at one stage, political killings were largely, assassinations in any case, were largely isolated to areas, certain areas, pockets in KwaZulu-Natal, for example. And we now see that it has migrated to other parties. We had a DA councillor assassinated recently. And we also see that it has evolved to just be more widespread. It's in other provinces. And I was wondering if there were some predictions or some thoughts that you might have before we wrap up on how it's going to play out with the political violence in the next couple of months.
Yeah, look, political killing, it's rife. But from my understanding and research, the same Mkabis, the same modus operandi, is also being used in construction mafias. Tomorrow you can be owning a construction company, you install pipes or whatever, you build a mall or even road construction, but you get killed by not paying a protection fee from the same Mkabis. So, I fail to understand that these people are known. Only when they are killed, we'll listen to some of the statements coming from the leadership saying, yeah, we knew this guy. He's been under our radar. He killed he was wanted for this matter, this and this and this. So why can't we take them off the streets whilst we still have a chance? Places where you give excuses that you cannot patrol. Why don't we use drones? We've got drones. Why we don't fly drones? We can fly drones. We can use a scrambler bike. 3-4 guys, they go in. We can use a helicopter. So you can't give an excuse that, no, up there in the mountain, there's an RDP house. How was it built, first of all, if one cannot get there? But the Nkabis are staying there, so it's not easy for us to patrol. That's a most lousiest excuse. And there are resources that can eradicate this Nkabis. Now, the problem with Nkabis, they operate in this fashion. They recruit even the young ones. And, most parents will agree with me that most of their kids, immediately after they feel that they are men, they are from initiation school, then they join this thing of Nkabis. I don't know what is it that they are taught or they feel they are men or what have you, but you see the trend. It's a pattern. Now, once a young boy has been recruited, now those Nkabis, now they move now to cash in transit or to large amount of eradicating people and large money that is paid on their table. So that's why I'm saying they even moved in the construction market, because that's where the big money is at. I like getting 50,000 to kill a political ward councillor. Now, the business is booming. Now, what they do, they are mostly in the taxi industry. Oh, by the way, I was in the taxi industry. That's another history I forgot.
A fascinating industry.
Yeah, I was in the taxi industry in Mabopane Station, Stengvater, they call it, New Year's Stress. I was there. I had taxis. Now, they operate in line of acquiring taxis. And once that happens, is that even the same modus operandi that they use in political killing, construction killing, they use it to fight in the taxi rank.
So you find the same people, same guns, same bullets, same murderers.
Exactly. I like you mentioned guns. Now, what is a gun? What is their gun? They call it a tool. Is their tool?
Z88.
Whatever. Yes, they call it Lizulu. It's the Z38 in the language. And then the rifle is called Legeja. AK-47, it's a Legeja. Now, even in hostel, when you buy, you need to know the language when you buy these guns. Now, most of these guns, they used to be legal in South Africa. Speaking of
guns. It was police issue Z88.
Yes. And then there used to be many farmers, after exile. There used to be gun collectors. But there are a lot of guys who used to operate, going there and robbing these farmers for these weapons. And then some of the automatic rifles and explosives, they come from outside, like we said, the Mozambique route. Okay? Now, they operate like, if you know a golf player has got golf sticks. They respect their bag. It is their tool of trade. They respect that bag. They take care of it. They've got warm stuff that they put it on those things. They are well kept and well dressed, in a nice set of this thing.
Looking after their equipment.
The Nkabis, they operate like that. The gun stays in the bag. So only when they go now commit a thing, they trust only that guy. There hasn't been. They use mutis like what we call intelezi. It's only used on that guy. Now, they trust the thing. And we heard about, even in the inquiry of the Marikana, if you remember.
Yes,
the Marikana, there were guys, actually to build up to the Saga Day, there were police officers that were killed, by the way.
Yes, I remember.
That were killed even with brooms and stabbed and what have you. These guys, they used to dish this thing in the Telezi thing. And then they did the same thing on that particular day, whereby they came with live ammunition, rifles and shotguns. They had their Intelezi. Now, their traditional whatever told them that if you shoot at the police, they shoot at you, only water will come out. That's the mentality of a Gabi.
Yes, I understand.
Now, the very same method of these guns that I told you about in a golf stick type of a setup, they perform rituals. Now, don't you think if we can recruit some of these sangomas who are performing these things, don't you think how many guys will catch? Because they will know that so-and-so is going to commit a crime, because they perform rituals prior to the killing and after the killing. That's why That's why if before and after, they wash gas, they wash
I've heard that.
blood. They must perform certain rituals. Now, that's why even when they've got what we call a number on your name, meaning your name is on the hit list, and they can't find you for 3-4 months without killing you, they need to go back and perform certain rituals again. They call it Babizi Dlozilako. They want your ancestors now to respond because you are not easily killed. So the same modus operandi in the taxi industry, construction mafia, in the political space. Now, other political parties are crying foul that no, now the incumbents now they've joined in killing our people. No. Position of ward councillors, you must bear in mind. Watch your back. Position of those small positions,
Yes.
besides MMCs and going up. As long as you are vocal, you don't know the modus operandi of these people, bear in mind, your days are numbered. As much as I realized over the weekend, I went to some of the township wanting to find out why most people, they are queuing up in the sun, sitting on top of the buckets, they are waiting for water because they don't have water at their taps. Only to find out, no. Some mafias, they control the hydrant pipes where now the truck must reverse and dip out the water. Now, it's a toll gate now. If you don't pay X amount of money and you want water for the next suburb or the next village or the next township, a ward councillor who's different to where you get the water, you must pay. And some of these ward councillors, they know about it. They don't report it to their master, to report to the MEC, to report to the because some of them, they're involved in the shenanigans. They facilitate. Now, guess what? If they fight over money, what's going to happen? They kill one another.
It's amazing. It's actually the
They
first
kill one
time
another.
that I've been introduced to the idea that some of these political killings aren't necessarily motivated in the first instance by politics, but actually by money.
Yes,
and that's very interesting.
Yes, by some of the underworld that they get involved in. That's why even when one of the unions of the police, speaking of the same scenario, they say, no, we must declare police killings treason. Now, if somebody committed treason, if one understands the phrase for treason, it's somebody overthrowing the government, then must be eradicated. Now, here's the scenario. We've seen other police, and I want them to take this home. Police, one, do not go clubbing with your firearm. Because the criminals, they take that firearm, but because they think that you are well trained, they shoot you first and take the gun.
Yeah.
Or you might even respond and then, you get your life in danger. Do not go clapping with a firearm, getting exposed. 2, do not respond to a crime scene where they tell you that there's guns fired or a cash in transit or a robbery without wearing a bulletproof and having a backup of either TRT or POP. Those are specially militarized, trained police. So you cannot just be a detective, stand up here, receive a call or a WhatsApp and run to the scene. You get killed because you are not properly trained. You only have your small Z38 or whatever the gun, the Zulu,
a 9
and then
mil.
you want to go and respond. That guy, he's not like he's trained, that idiot or that criminal. He just shoots randomly. You even can endanger the lives of others.
And some of them are very well trained. Some of them are obviously military trained.
Militarized, yes. Yeah. Some are from Africa. They were militarized because of...
No, they're too organized.
They are very organized. So do not respond to such without proper gear, PPE gears, protection clothing, or backups to this criminal. Rather, let them go in the car and then finish them off, or let them be at home and then get them there, whichever way, but do not respond. Thirdly, there are police who are involved in some of these dealings. We've seen the cash in transit before it took place in Mpumalanga. Flying squad members were caught with what? Delivering rifles. And we've seen even in other many cases whereby in kidnappings, police get arrested. Now, if those people in those structures, they betray one another, what is the name of the game? You betray, you get killed.
Unbelievable.
So then it goes case by case. There are good men and women in blue. That's why we kindly urge them to not go clubbing with a firearm. It gets your life in danger. Do not respond to crime scene without a bulletproof, calling for backup. Please, guys. These idiots, they just shoot randomly. And like we say, also military trained, some of them. And under the influence of drugs.
What if?
So this thing of police getting their hands in the cookie jar, it also plays a big role. And from the onset, they need to be eradicated out of the system. Are you aware that some of the cigarettes, smuggling of cigarettes coming from the border, you get them escorted
I've
through
heard
the blue
that police
lights, through
escort.
the blue lights, especially the police reservists.
I've heard
Because
that.
when
police
you stop them at the roadblock, they show you the
ID.
police badge, angsterlang they call it, and then the car is flashing lights. They can even tell you that, no, we are on an operation. We are from national office. We're taking this truck to our police power. No. Police must verify indeed with their commander that do they know that they're there. Because you might be leaving them out of the scene. So one needs to ventilate such things.
That information is going to break the ears of a lot of South Africans, because I think a lot of us are just kind of naive. We're aware of the corruption and the incompetence, but to hear how it actually functions is mind blowing. Truly one of the most interesting things I've ever heard anybody talk about as a South African. I wish that we could talk about firearms all day long. It in and of itself in South Africa, firearms are its own topic. I mean, we could talk about the failure of CFR, Central Firearms Registry, the incoherence of Firearms Control Act 2000 and its very poor implementation, police losing firearms, SANDF losing firearms, private civilians losing firearms. We really don't have much time left, so maybe sometime in the future we could have you back on for a short just to talk about that kind of thing. But for now, I would like to introduce you to just a personal story of mine, and you could give a couple of notes maybe to help some people out there that are experiencing the same things. What are the right questions to ask, or what are the right things to do if you're experiencing this problem. And my problem is this. I have a very good friend. We were friends for 30 years, and more or less 18 months ago, he had an argument with his mom at her house. It wasn't so bad. Nobody was breaking or throwing shit. They had a bit of an argument, and he walked out of the house, and he has never been seen again. And we have spent 18 months going to private detectives. We spent 18 months. We've gone to every police station. We phoned every morgue in the country. We cannot find my friend Carl Spiegler. He has small children to look after. He's got a family. And this is a very common thing in South Africa, where missing persons, people just disappear, whether it be incompetence at a morgue, whether it be a lost docket, whether it be human trafficking. And when you get to the police station, you just met with either complete disinterest, people don't care, or they make a docket, you never hear back from them, or you get a detective and then the next week you get assigned a new detective and a new detective. And after 18 months of this back and forward, we just aren't able to get anywhere. And he's still a person with relative means. I'm his friend. I've looked for him. I've contacted people, but we've had no luck. What would you suggest to people that are living through this kind of experience, this kind of anxiety, this kind of anguish, God forbid, over a missing adult, even worse, over a missing child?
Yeah, look, we get a lot of cases like that. And my advice normally is to first go to the police station, report a missing person. Now, in the last law, which is now amended, they will tell you, no, it's the person missing for 48 hours before you can register a case. Nowadays, the minute you become aware, you visit the police station, you register.
So they must insist. They mustn't allow police to turn them away and say, come back in 48. You have the right to report. They must help you to make the report. Is that correct?
Make the report. If they resist, you go to the station command. If they all resist, you call the provincial detectives. Now, coming to the issue that, there are matters when a person is gone missing. Obviously, they'll ask you for their picture. Somehow they upload the picture so that anybody out there, they can see, oh, here's a missing person. And then even as the citizen, we help one another. Social media plays a big role, by the way. A missing person, you write your notes there, then you send it across. Now, the second step, this is an adult who, by the way, is, like you're saying, he's got kids and the likes. Where is his bank account? Where is his bank card? The police by now, they should be sitting with the transaction, knowing that the last transaction that the card was used was at such a place. If he's got a cell phone, what is the latest number in the handset? Now, those are matters that the police, they subpoena, they've got the power to ventilate, not even us private investigators for that matter. Because the police, they all go pull out the bank statement and see, oh, this person is busy spending money, or maybe sleeping at such a hotel. Then they can easily go. If not, if the account is being closed, who's using the account? If there's another third party using the account, they visit that person, and that person will say, no, this person lost their mind, so I'm taking care till he remembers. So it's important to start there. First point of departure. And cell phone. With a cell phone, the police are able to know what is the latest number in the handset through what we call an IME whitelist. What do I mean by that? If his SIM card is being taken out, and let's say wherever he is, somebody inserts the SIM card, or he sold the phone, or somebody marked him, and before they demand ransom or whatever, maybe a robbery gone wrong, they will take that phone. Now, whosoever is using that phone must explain, So those are the type of things. But if you get frustration at the local police station, you tell the detective commander, the station commander, that one of your members, Sergeant Calvin or Constable or Brigadier, sorry for that matter, Colonel so-and-so is not doing their function. And this is the matter, and this is the advice that I got. So if they fail, then you report them to the provincial detective. Because the provincial detectives, those detectives at the province, they audit the dockets of the station level. So I'm sure there you won't come back empty-handed. Because they can call in the docket and say, Sergeant Calvin, what did you do? Why didn't you check the bank statement? Why didn't you check the phone? And if the person now gives another reason, they can even take that docket and investigate it from their office. But the help is there, the resources are there. So if you sitting with all those information, and then obviously, I know this is very saddening. They normally ask, can you check the mortuaries? If there's any record.
We checked
I know it doesn't sound nice.
It was horrible.
We have to accept.
Yeah, we phoned every morgue in South Africa, and to date, we have not been able to get the police, Sandringham, to help us with anything. They refused to help us with cell phone. They refused to help us with banking. And then somebody later on accessed his Facebook and made a post on it. And we took it to them, and they just said, we can't help you. So I appreciate the information. I will pass it on to his loved ones and tell them that they got to go to the provincial detectives.
Yes, that's the best route, because we don't know if somebody's been held under duress, or they lost their mind, or it was a robbery that has gone wrong, or he's just deciding, you know what, because there was a fight. And another thing, I know why sometimes they can be reluctant, and they like to ask this question, the police, that did you guys have a fight before the child left, or before so ever? And if you say yes, even though they register a case, but they're so reluctant to investigate, because they think, you know what, it's a domestic issue. Yeah. So do not undermine the situation. A person might have a fight with a parent, walk out, and become a victim of a kidnapping. So by default, those criminals, it means now, out of that advantage, it became very, helpful for them, for the police not to investigate. So it is not right, it is not okay to do that. So they must properly ventilate the matter.
That's just very, very valuable advice, because there are so many people out there dealing with this situation, especially people that don't have a lot of resources. The police might say something like, oh, bring a lawyer, we need a lawyer, or no, you've got power. So if you have a missing person or a missing loved one out there, take Calvin's advice. Push the detective, go to the station commander, contact the provincial detectives. Don't just take it at face value at the police station. Don't take the first no for an answer, would be my advice, basically, coming directly from Calvin. And yeah, man, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a pity that we can't keep going on for longer. It would get down to the point where we would use up 24 hours in a day. But I would just like to know if you have any final thoughts before we end, and then also if you would like to give people information about where to contact you, or where to find you if they need help, with business-related matters or private-related matters that are in your business wheelhouse. So maybe if you can run us out with just where to contact you, how to get hold of you, and maybe your final thoughts.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys for the opportunity, and your viewers at large. My advice, let us not romanticize criminals. What do I mean by that? Aiding and abetting is a crime. So if you know of anybody in your community who's committing crimes, just be a whistleblower or informant. And by the way, informants, we get paid, by the way. They assess, we get paid for good information, and that's why they pay. But at the same time, whilst we're speaking about aiding and abetting and romanticizing criminals, we realize that Operation Shanyela is doing a great job. And coming to the issue of contacting me, so at the moment, I'm not taking any jobs or opportunities. I only do media awarenesses, for the solely reason that media plays a big role and is a strong tool. So as we advise one another on media, I'm sure you can follow the channels and even see us on media trying to advise there and thereof. And once I'm done completing, I'm one person, I want to make a difference in the country.
And you are.
And I can go to a private sector and get good money with my qualifications. But I want to come either get a position where I'll have power within subs or state security.
We would love to see you be a chief of police.
So that we can get it in line on how it should function. And I'm not saying myself as an individual, I'll make a difference. No, the small drop and contribution of the skill and knowledge, and it can make a difference. Because I'm one person, I do a lot of researches, and I infiltrate, and I believe in practical modern theory. So I thank you for the opportunity.
I'd love to see you find yourself in a position of power in South Africa. I think you would make I don't know if you would want the job, but I think you'd make a fantastic chief of police or a minister, a safety and security minister or something. I think you have an unbelievable depth of knowledge. You're empathetic, you're compassionate, you understand what's happening from the bottom all the way to the top, not just like a lot of guys understand only what happens in their office. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been a fantastic guest, an amazing person to chat to. And the kind of stories and information that you gave were as good as we thought it would be. So thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to speaking more in the future. Thank you, Calvin Rafadi.